You know what's genuinely intriguing about high net worth individuals? Their approach to money management looks nothing like what most of us imagine. While everyone else is running after the next big cryptocurrency or glued to stock market fluctuations, the truly affluent are quietly sticking to a system so straightforward, it's almost dull. And honestly, that simplicity is precisely why it delivers such consistent results. My name is Nick, and I've dedicated years to observing how genuinely wealthy people navigate their financial lives. What I've uncovered might catch you off guard because it has nothing to do with secret investment formulas or picking the right hedge fund. Instead, it revolves around a basic framework that anybody can adopt. Whether you bring home $30,000 or $300,000 annually, today, I'll walk you through the exact blueprint that distinguishes the financially successful from the rest of the pack. It's referred to as the 156,520 rule. By the time this video ends, you'll have a crystal clear understanding of how to apply it to your own circumstances. This isn't abstract theory or wishful thinking, it's a concrete structure that has consistently generated genuine wealth over time. And the best part? It's so simple that you could put it into action before your next paycheck lands. But here's what makes this even more compelling. Most individuals assume wealth management is complicated because that's exactly what the financial industry wants you to believe. The more tangled they make it sound, the more likely you are to hire someone to handle it for you. In truth, the core principles of wealth building haven't shifted in decades, and they're so elementary you could explain them to a teenager. Wealthy people grasp something that the majority overlook completely. It's not about the volume of cash flowing into your account each month. It's about what happens to that money after it arrives. You could pull in six figures and still be broke if you lack a system for managing your income. Meanwhile, someone earning half that amount can accumulate serious wealth by sticking to the right method. So let's unpack the 156,520 rule and see exactly how it functions. Those numbers stand for percentages, and each one plays a distinct role in your financial ecosystem. Think of it as a recipe for monetary success. You wouldn't toss random ingredients into a bowl and hope for a decent cake, would you? The same logic applies to your finances. The first digit, 15%, is arguably the most crucial piece of this entire framework. This is the slice of every dollar you earn that gets locked away for your future self. Not for monthly bills, not for eating out, not for that shiny object you've had your eye on. This money has a single mission: to work on your behalf while you sleep. Now, I can hear what you're thinking. 15% feels like a hefty chunk, especially if you're already stretching your income to cover the basics. But here's the insight that completely transforms how you see this number. That 15% serves two vital functions, and once you appreciate both, following through becomes far more manageable. First, it builds what I call your financial safety buffer. Life has a nasty habit of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Your transmission fails right after you've settled all your monthly obligations. An unexpected medical bill lands in your mailbox. Your employer announces layoffs. And suddenly, you're job hunting without a cash cushion. These events don't just cause inconvenience, they trigger panic. Suddenly, you're not only handling the problem itself, but also desperately searching for ways to pay for it. This is where most people reach for credit cards or take on debt that haunts them for months or even years. But when that 15% is quietly working for you, these situations shrink to manageable speed bumps. You deal with the issue, get back to normal life, and likely sleep better knowing you're ready for whatever comes next. Second, this 15% does something far more exciting, and it's the part that separates the comfortably well-off from the genuinely wealthy. This money isn't just sitting idle in a low-interest savings account. Instead, it's put to work generating even more money for you. That's where compound interest becomes your greatest ally. Honestly, It's one of the most formidable forces in all of finance. Albert Einstein reportedly called it the eighth wonder of the world, and whether he truly said that or not, the idea is spot on. When your earnings start producing their own earnings, you ignite a snowball effect that can turn modest contributions into substantial fortunes over time. Let me illustrate this with a straightforward example that might completely shift your perspective on starting early versus starting late. Imagine two people, Sarah and James, both aiming to build wealth, but taking different timing strategies. Sarah decides to invest $10,000 when she turns 30. She chooses investments that yield 6% annually, a fairly conservative return compared to historical market averages. She never adds another cent to that investment for the next 20 years. By the time Sarah hits 50, her original $10,000 has ballooned to over $32,000. James takes a different path. He waits until he's 40 to begin investing, then contributes $2,000 every single year for a decade. He earns the same 6% annual return as Sarah. By age 50, James has put in $20,000 total, yet his account is worth roughly $28,000. Here's the fascinating takeaway. Sarah invested half as much money as James, yet ended up with more wealth. The deciding factor was giving her money more time to compound and expand. Those extra 10 years of growth made all the difference, even though she never added another dollar. This example shows why the 15% rule is so powerful when you get started early. Even modest sums can blossom into significant wealth if they're granted enough compounding time. And the beautiful thing about compound interest is that it accelerates as time goes on. The growth you witness in year 20 is dramatically larger than what you see in year 5. Now, you're probably wondering exactly where this 15% should be directed. That's an excellent question, because not all investment vehicles are created equal. Wealthy people understand that the government actually provides special accounts specifically designed to help you build wealth more efficiently. These accounts come with tax benefits that can noticeably boost your returns over the long haul if you're employed. There's a strong chance your employer offers some kind of retirement plan with matching contributions. That is literally free money, and it's arguably the best return on investment you will ever encounter. Here's something wild. The moment your employer adds money to match your contribution, you've just scored a guaranteed 100% profit before the market even opens. That's not investing. That's collecting free cash. So the real game is simple: put in at least enough to grab every single dollar they're offering. Let's say your company will match up to 5% of your paycheck, but you're only setting aside 3%. Congratulations, you've just volunteered to leave free money behind. That's like spotting a $20 bill on the ground and only bending down to pick up half of it. Once you've handled that, there's another layer. Outside of workplace plans, the government hands you special accounts designed to shield your gains from taxes. In the U.S., we call them traditional and Roth IRAs. In the UK, they're ISAs. What do? They let your money multiply without getting nibbled away by taxes year after year. Over a lifetime, that single advantage can put an extra $50, $60, even $70,000 in your pocket just for using the right container. So here's the order of operations the wealthy follow without thinking twice. Fill up those tax-free or tax-deferred accounts first. Only after that bucket is full should you even look at regular taxable accounts. Why? Because building wealth with a tax discount is like shopping with a coupon that never expires. And the government gives you that coupon because they'd rather you save than struggle. Now comes the part that makes stock pickers cringe. When it's time to actually invest this money, the wealthy do something almost painfully unexciting. They don't hunt for the next Tesla or try to time the next crash. Instead, they pour their cash into broad, boring baskets that simply follow the whole market. These are called index funds or passive funds. Think of them as autopilot for your net worth. You stop trying to guess which single company will win the race. Instead, you buy a microscopic slice of every company in the race. It's not betting on one horse. It's buying the entire track. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to become a stock-picking genius. You don't need to spend your Saturday mornings decoding earnings reports. You don't need to know which CEO is about to mess up. You're just betting that over the next 20 or 30 years, the economy will keep growing, which, historically, has been one of the safest bets in existence. Oh, and one more thing. These funds charge almost nothing in fees. That means more of your hard-earned cash stays in your pocket instead of leaking out to fund someone else's fancy office. People underestimate how devastating small fees can be. A fund that takes 2% every year sounds harmless, but over 3 decades, that 2% can quietly steal tens of thousands of dollars from your future self. The wealthy understand a simple truth. Steady and boring beats brilliant and erratic almost every single time. They'd rather lock in reliable year-after-year gains than swing for the bleachers and strike out. It's not sexy, but it works, and working is what matters. All right, let's shift gears and talk about the 65% piece of the puzzle. This bucket covers everything you need to simply exist. Roof over your head, food in your fridge, gas in your tank, lights on, water running. This is the zone where most people either build a foundation for wealth or sabotage themselves without even realizing it. Here's the trap. Your expenses have a natural tendency to swell up like a balloon the moment you give them any extra air. Sound familiar? You get a promotion, and suddenly your one-bedroom apartment feels cramped. Your perfectly fine car starts looking embarrassing next to your coworker's shiny new SUV. That vacation you used to consider a splurge now feels like the bare minimum you deserve. Fast forward a year, and you're making more money, but feeling just as broke as before. Economists call this lifestyle inflation. I call it the financial version of quicksand. The more you earn, the deeper you sink if you're not paying attention. The 65% cap is your firewall against this slow-motion disaster. By drawing a hard line under your essential spending, you force yourself to make trade-offs instead of just letting your costs drift upward every time your income ticks higher. It's not about deprivation. It's about boundaries, look. I won't pretend this is easy. If you live in a pricey city where rent alone devours 40 or 50% of your take-home pay, keeping total essentials at 65% is a real challenge. But here's what constraints do. They force creativity. Maybe you bring in a roommate to split housing. Maybe you trade a short commute for a longer one with much cheaper rent. Maybe you buy a dependable used car with cash instead of signing up for 6 years of payments on something flashy. None of these choices are glamorous, but they're exactly the kind of choices that create breathing room in your budget. So what counts as a fundamental expense? 4 walls, a way to get to work. Groceries, electricity, heat. Internet has become pretty close to essential, but streaming subscriptions? Gym memberships you don't use? Daily takeout lattes? No, those live somewhere else. Housing usually takes the biggest bite out of that 65%. And that makes sense. You need shelter. But there's a world of difference between having a roof and having a dream roof. Wealthy people, especially early on, often choose to live beneath their means. Why? Because an extra $300 a month in rent doesn't just cost $300 a month. It costs decades of compound growth on that $300 over time. That single decision can steal tens of thousands of dollars from your future net worth. Transportation is another goldmine of smart trade-offs. The average car payment in America has crossed $700 a month. Let that sink in. You're handing over $700 every single month for an asset that is literally worth less the second you turn the key. Meanwhile, a rock-solid used car might run you $300 a month. That $400 difference? invested at reasonable returns for 10 years. It grows into over $60,000. Suddenly, that brand new car in your driveway looks less like a reward and more like a $60,000 mistake. Food is where things get really interesting because this category is a split personality. You genuinely need to eat. You do not need $15 avocado toast. You do not need restaurant delivery 5 nights a week. Wealthy people tend to be surgical about food spending. They cook at home most of the time. They treat eating out as an event, not a default setting. None of this is about living like a monk or saying no to everything fun. It's about being deliberate with your core spending so that you have room left over for both wealth building and enjoyment. And that brings us to the best part. The 20% slice of the 156,520 rule might actually be the most underrated piece of the whole system, even though it's the one that makes people feel slightly guilty. This is your official, no-shame permission to enjoy your life right now. This money is for entertainment, hobbies, spontaneous nonsense, concerts, video games, road trips, whatever actually makes you happy. I can already hear the objection. Why would anyone serious about wealth deliberately set money on fire for fun instead of investing every last dollar? The answer is pure psychology. Humans are not robots. Anyone who tries to squeeze every penny into savings usually ends up snapping. They go strict for 3 months, feel miserable, then blow through all their progress in one weekend. It's the financial equivalent of a crash diet followed by a binge. The 20% rule stops that cycle before it starts. When you know that a full fifth of your income is literally designed for fun, you can spend it without a single ounce of guilt. That's not a small thing. That's the difference between a system you abandon and a system you stick with for decades. Building wealth is not a sprint. It's not even a marathon. It's a lifestyle. And any lifestyle that requires constant misery is doomed to fail. The wealthy understand something that most people never learn. A sustainable plan that you actually follow is infinitely more powerful than a perfect plan that you quit after 6 months. And here's the kicker. There's actually serious research that proves this approach works. Research reveals something fascinating. People who build a little spending freedom into their lives are far more likely to stick with their saving targets over the long run. It sounds backwards, but letting yourself spend money actually helps you hold on to your saving habits. Go figure. That 20% bucket can fund everything from your daily coffee ritual that keeps you from losing your mind, to the occasional splurge, to booking actual vacations without that nagging feeling that you're robbing your future retirement. The magic word here is intentionality. You're not mindlessly overspending and then drowning in regret later. You're consciously carving out this money for enjoyment because you recognize that life is meant to be lived, not just tolerated, while you wait for some distant day when you'll finally have enough to be happy. But here's where most people trip up. One group skips this step entirely and tries to hoard every possible dollar, which inevitably leads to exhaustion and bitterness. The other group swings to the opposite extreme and tries to justify almost every purchase as part of the 20%, which obviously defeats the whole point of having separate categories in the first place. The wealthy are surprisingly strict about this line. When that month's 20% runs dry, it's dry. They don't steal from next month's fun fund, and they certainly don't reach into the 15% that's supposed to be busy building their future. This is exactly where that dull consistency I mentioned earlier really starts to shine. Now let's talk about something nobody wants to bring up, but everyone desperately needs to hear. The 156,520 rule reads beautifully on paper, but putting it into practice can feel downright impossible when you're already living paycheck to paycheck. If you're currently burning through 90% of your income just to keep the lights on, hearing about this system might feel more irritating than useful. But here's the truth about financial transformation that most people miss. It doesn't happen overnight. And it doesn't require you to flip your entire life upside down in one dramatic gesture. Wealthy people didn't get to where they are by making flawless decisions from day one. They got there by making slight decisions, day after day, for a very long time. If you can't manage 15% right now, start with 5%. If keeping essentials at 65% feels like a fantasy, shoot for 75% and slowly trim down from there. The exact numbers are less important than building the muscle of living within thoughtful limits. Once you prove to yourself that you can stick with whatever percentages you choose, you can gradually nudge them closer to the full system. Here's the beautiful part: this approach scales with your income. When that raise or promotion finally lands, the dollar amounts in each category go up, but the percentages hold steady. That stops lifestyle inflation from gobbling up your entire pay bump, while still letting you enjoy at least some of the rewards of earning more. And get this, most wealthy people didn't begin life with money. They started as ordinary folks who happened to stumble across frameworks, just like this one, and then had the self-discipline to ride them out long enough to see real results. What separates them from everyone else isn't intelligence, luck, or a rich family tree. It's consistency and patience. So there you have it. The 156,520 rule isn't some hidden treasure that only billionaires have mapped out. It's just basic arithmetic wrapped in self-control, which, apparently, makes it rarer than a unicorn. Start with whatever percentages you can honestly handle. Show up consistently, then get out of the way and let compound interest do what it does best. Your future self will either send you a thank you note or wonder why in the world you waited so long to begin.